It was not that long ago that the New York Times posed the idea of a Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis 2024 presidential primary, even though DeSantis largely lacks the national experience and name recognition needed to challenge Trump.
In a recent op-ed, Keith Naughton makes the case for one man who could beat Trump in the fight for the GOP nomination, Mike Pence. Principal at Silent Majority Strategies, Keith Naughton, joins us now to discuss. Welcome, Keith.
Good morning.
So, Mike Pence, huh?
Yeah. Well, look, there's nobody with the profile to face Trump if Trump runs for the nomination. I mean, look, he's running now. The question is whether he pulls the trigger in November of 2023 to actually go through with it. I mean, if he thinks he's going to lose to Biden again, I think, he'll come up with some excuse why he won't run. But if he thinks he can win, he's going to run and he'll run. There's no question about it. And there's just nobody in the Republican field that could possibly face off against him. I mean, what are you going to have? Bill Weld, Evan McMullin, some minor staffer. I mean, if you're going to have some anonymous jerk, you might as well nominate Navin Johnson. I mean, who cares? There's nobody that can face off against Trump because Trump's just drawn all the oxygen out. The only person with some real name recognition and with some conservative bona fides and supported Trump is Pence. I don't think it's likely he runs, but I think he's the only one who's got a shot. I think there is that possibility.
But I feel like in 2016, Trump needed Pence, or felt like he needed Pence as a way to reach out to the evangelical community, to bring the Christian right on board. He doesn't even need that anymore. They are fully on board with him, and Mike Pence is just a middleman that has been cut out. So if you don't even need him to bring on the evangelical community, what is the base that prefers Pence to Trump within the Republican Party at this point?
Well, I think Trump's got a developing Bernie Sanders problem, which is, can't win. His ballot test has been bad. His favorables are underwater. Everything he does to keep himself in the public eye does not improve that or build on his coalition. I mean, my premise is that if Republicans think that Trump can't win, they've got to go for somebody who can. And the best proxy there really is Pence. His favorables in the Republican Party are 69-23 on the upside. So it's very strong. He's net unfavorable amongst the public at large, but it's only 41. It's only, if I remember my numbers correctly, it's only 41-47. Trump's down by 10 points. So, if you're looking for someone who can win, it doesn't look like it's going to be Trump right now.
What about Ron DeSantis? You don't think Ron DeSantis is a good replacement, I suppose, for Trump, or a challenger even?
Well, that's the difference. I think replacement, yes. I think DeSantis would be a good replacement. I think Rubio would be the best replacement. But I don't think either of them can be displacements. Because if Trump gets in, or if Trump stays in, he just draws out all the oxygen. I mean, he is very aggressive at anyone who comes near him. I don't see anyone on the national stage that could really, prevent, knock Trump off the stage. I don't see that happens on the Republican side.
Yeah, I think you put your finger on a really interesting dynamic, which is that I think you're correct that a ton of Republicans are concerned about Trump's electability, that they think that he's going to drag them down, not just in the midterms coming up, but if he runs again in 2024, that he can't win. But at the same time, he can win a primary. And he will, I think he would clear the field, because each individual actor has no incentive to take on Trump, because they don't want, they know how a fight with Trump winds up. DeSantis is going to want to be, like you said, his replacement whenever Trump eventually cedes the field, but that's hard to do if Trump just spent the last 2 years, humiliating him in a primary before that very base that he feels like he is his for the taking, but not if he tries to take it.
And the thing about Trump's numbers is Kim, they're big. But I think a lot of that is a proxy of not liking woke politics and cancel culture and all these issues that conservatives, cultural conservatives, fiscal conservatives, Republicans don't like. You have to rally around somebody. You don't rally around a ballot question or a polling question. So I think Trump is sucking all that up. But when you ask who do you want to vote for, he's running 25, 30 points down from his approval rating.
Mm-hmm. I think you make a really good point, actually, about Mike Pence. And I think the reason would be, I mean, you're right. No one really politically wants to challenge Trump. They don't really want to go down that road and see where it ends up, because it might not end up anywhere good for them. But Mike Pence, on the other hand, it's not likely Trump would select Pence again if Trump were to get the nomination. I don't think Pence is going to be his running mate. So there's really no loss for Mike Pence politically for him to his gamble would actually be best on challenging Trump. That would be the best. I mean, it's a gamble, right? Because, again, you don't really know where that road leads. And I don't know what Mike Pence has planned for his political future, if anything. But the gamble would be, look, this is a guy that's already shunning you. So if you go against him, then at least you're kind of taking that moral stand for the Republican Party. And if Trump ends up being, terrible again, and then it's better to have that distance. And Mike Pence could kind of point to that and say, see, I already tried to challenge the guy. I was the only one who dared to. Maybe that would be politically expedient for Mike Pence eventually. And maybe a lot of those evangelicals would say, hey, you know what? We like Trump. We're on board with Trump, but we prefer Mike Pence. He's, much more like what we envision. So possibly that would be something.
I mean, Mike Pence is Mr. Super Evangelical. If anyone's going to be able to appeal to those folks, it's him. Running in 2024, it's probably Pence's only chance. I mean, there's no way Trump's going to forgive him. There's no way Trump puts him on the ballot. I mean, Trump's running mate, if he agrees to, it's going to be Tim Scott. I mean, that's his choice for whatever kabuki he goes through the next 3 years. That would be his choice. This is Pence's really only chance at it. I think you mentioned the midterms. I have a piece coming out, I think this week on it. It's a very dangerous thing for Trump because he's getting involved in primaries. He's going to create some problems for himself. There's another drag on him. And I think anything less than a 20-seat pickup would be an underperform for the Republicans. And I think they're going to put that on Trump because the Democrats are going to make the midterms all about Trump because they got to do something to energize their base. And what they got now between Biden and Harris isn't going to energize anybody. Hating Trump is the ticket. So Trump's going to be back front and center.
Keith, isn't a problem, though, here that Mike Pence is actually also considered unelectable?
Yes, but, again, it gets into this dynamic, like you said, about the incentives. What's the incentive for anyone like DeSantis to come up? I mean, he's just not well known enough. He's not a nationwide candidate. How does he break through? I don't think he does. I think if Trump runs, the only other Republican that's got the stature to compete with him is Pence. And they're both underwater, but Pence is less underwater than Trump. And it's just sort of you got to take what you can get at the time. And depending on the national situation, whether it's inflation, immigration issues, or whether people think Biden is still up to the job at 82, all those things could help Pence candidacy.
All right, well, Keith Naughton, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And we'll have more Rising for you right after this.